Hello friends, in this video let us discuss the solution of mock test 4 which was conducted on 12th of July 2020. So here you have to enter valid email address. This will help me for giveaway contest. So moving on to first question, what they are given is electric field will always have radial motion, rotational motion, both radial and rotational motion, neither radial motion nor rotational motion. We know that electric field will be having radial motion, nothing but del dot D, which is equals to rho V. But if I am talking about a magnetic field will be having a rotational motion, it will not be having radial motion. How I can tell it will be having a rotational motion? Because curl H equals to J. If I am talking about modified Ampere's law, it is curl H equals to J plus dou D divided by dou T. Hence, magnetic field will be having rotational motion. So, if I am talking about radial motion in the case of magnetic field, it is del dot B, which is equals to 0. Nothing but in the case of magnetic field, radial motion will not exist, but rotational motion do exist. So, the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 1 is correct. 5 out of 17 response is correct. Moving on to second question, what they are given is to implement the expression y equals to a plus b plus cd into E, how many transistors are required in the case of NMOS design? We know that we are very much familiar with respect to CMOS design. In the case of CMOS design, you will be having VDD rail and ground rail. You are going to tap Vout in between. Here you are going to place pull-up network, and here you are going to place pull-down network. And pull-up network is made up of PMOS transistor and pull-down network is made up of NMOS transistors. PMOS is connected between VDD and Vout. Nothing but PMOS is capable of passing strong logic 1, so we are going to connect in between VDD and Vout. But NMOS is capable of passing strong logic 0, so we have connected between Vout and ground. But the logic what they are asking is NMOS logic. So in the case of NMOS logic, entire PMOS network you are going to replace by a single depletion mode NMOS transistor. Single depletion mode NMOS transistors. In the pull down network you are going to realize the logic. So this is VDD rail and this is ground rail, or you can call it as VSS rail also. So in between this you are going to tap output. So what we have to realize is A plus B plus CD into E. So I am having a power supply rail and here it is ground rail, right? I am going to tap output from here. So I have to realize A plus B. A plus B means I have to connect in parallel. So it is A and one more input is B plus CD. So I have to connect in parallel. CD means it should be in series. So one input is C and one more input is D. So this entire combination, is connected in series with E. This entire combination is connected in series with E. Dot means it is nothing but AND operation, nothing but you have to connect in series. And the pull-up network you are going to replace by a single NMOS transistor which is of depletion mode NMOS transistor. We know that in the case of CMOS design or in the case of NMOS design, output will be always complement in nature. So the output what you will be getting is Y bar. But what we require is Y, nothing but we don't want bar, we want double complement. So in order to get the double complement, what you are going to do is we are going to make use of one more inverter. And this pull-up network is made up of depletion mode NMOS transistor. Here you are going to tap output. So you are going to call this one as output, that equals to Y. And you will be having a power supply rail, that is VDD and VSS. So this is how we are going to realize the logic. Again I am going to repeat, Y equals to A plus B. A plus B means it should be connected in parallel, plus CD it should be connected in parallel. C into D means it should be connected in series. So this entire thing you are going to connect in series with E. And in the case of PMOS, if they are talking, so entire pull-up network should be replaced by a depletion mode NMOS transistor. If I'm talking about in the case of CMOS design, so wherever you are connected in series, you have to replace by a parallel. Wherever you are connected in parallel, you are going to replace by your series. So count the number of transistors that is used. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 transistors you have used in the case of NMOS design. If they are asking CMOS design, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, pull-up network, another 5 transistors are required. So put together 10 plus 2 transistors. So you are in need of 12 if they are asking CMOS design. So if you are making use of NMOS design, you can save the number of transistors. Nothing but area occupancy will be very much less, package density will be more. The major drawback of using NMOS design is you will not be getting strong logic 1. Sometimes you will not be getting even strong logic 0 also. So this is one of the drawback if you are making use of only NMOS design. Moving on to third question, which A to D or D to A converter removes power fluctuation effect, nothing but hum effect. So you are going to eliminate this hum effect with the help of dual slope or integrating type. To realize 512:1 multiplexer, how many 2:1 multiplexers are required? Let us realize 4:1 multiplexer. So you will be having 4:1 multiplexer means 4 inputs you will be having. Let me call it as I0, I1 and one more inputs are I2 and I3. So this is 2 cross 1 multiplexer, 2 cross 1 multiplexer. The output of this you are going to give it to another 2 cross 1 multiplexer. So how many multiplexers you have used? It is 2 plus 1. How you got 2 plus 1 means 4 is there, 4 divided by 2 will be 2 plus remaining answer is 2, again divide by 2 which will become 3. So to realize 4:1 multiplexer you have used 3 2:1 multiplexer. Similarly, if I want to realize 8:1 multiplexer with the help of 2:1 multiplexer, first stage you will be having 4 2:1 multiplexer, second stage you will be having 2 2:1 multiplexer, and the next stage you will be having 1 multiplexer. That is nothing but 7 2:1 multiplexers are required. Similarly, if you want to realize 512 cross 1 multiplexer, then you are in need of first stage is 256 plus next stage is 128, next stage is 64 followed by 32, 16, 8, 4, 2 and then 1. Hence, number of 2:1 multiplexers required is 511 in number. So, the suitable option that is going to follow is none of the above. Hardly 2 of them have given the correct answer. Next question, calculate the total current. Here they are asking about total current where carrier power equals to 50 watts. So they have given carrier power equals to 50 watts and is 50% modulated. 50% modulated means mu equals to 0.5. When they have given this carrier power, how to calculate total current? So total current is given by carrier current into square root of 1 plus mu square divided by 2 if it is sinusoidal. We know that total power which is equals to carrier power into 1 plus mu square divided by 2. Now what is power? Power I can represent in terms of voltage or current. If I am representing in terms of voltage, it is V square divided by R. If I am representing in terms of current, it is I square times of R. So let me represent in terms of current, that is IT square times of R, which is equals to IC square times of R into 1 plus mu square divided by 2. So this R term and R term I can cancel. So IT equals to, taking square root on both sides, I'll be getting IC into under root of 1 plus mu square divided by 2. What is IC? So from this, if I am deriving IC I will be getting root 50. IC I will be getting root 50. So which is equals to root 50 into square root of 1 plus, what is 0.5 square? It is 0.25 all divided by 2. So I will be getting total current which is equals to 7.5 amperes. So unit should be actually A. Unit should be actually A. So total current means it is 7.5 amperes. Nothing but option 2 is going to follow. Maybe you would have confused with respect to total power. So the unit is watts. Maybe you would have confused. So most of them have opted first option. Next question, identify the odd one out. So they have given SR flip-flop, JK flip-flop, JK master slave flip-flop, D or T flip-flop. We know that in the case of SR flip-flop, number of inputs are 2 in number, S and R. Similarly, in the case of JK, 2 inputs. In the case of JK master slave also, you will be having 2 inputs. Master will be taking clock, slave will be taking clock bar. In the case of D or T flip-flop, you will be having only one input. So odd one is D or T flip-flop. Again, most of you have got confused because the JK master slave flip-flop means 2 stages, master and slave. So that is not the thing. See, in general, if I am speaking, I need to talk about structure, nothing but number of inputs and outputs. So odd one is D or T flip-flop. So option 4 is correct. Next question, they are telling us to calculate the range of k. So in order to calculate the range of k, what I am going to do is I am going to make use of an RH criteria. So in the case of RH criteria, the characteristic equation is 1 plus g of s times of h of s, which is equals to 0. So what I will be getting is the characteristic equation is, let me take s square plus 2s into s square plus 10s plus 24 plus k, which is equals to 0, because g of s into h of s is this expression. 1 plus g of s times of h of s, which is equals to 0, I will be getting this expression. On simplifying, what I will be getting is s power 4 plus 12s cube plus 44s square plus 48 times of s plus k, which is equals to 0. Now this is s power 4 term, s cube, s square, s power 1, s power 0. Let us write the coefficient. What is the coefficient of s power 4? It is 1. S cube coefficient 12, s square coefficient 44, s power 1 coefficient 48, and this is k. So how to find this coefficient? It is 12 times of 44 minus 48 divided by 12. So what I am getting is this value, upon simplifying, I will be getting 40. So upon simplifying, I will be getting 40. Now what is this value? So this value, how can I find means, now look at over here, 12 into k, that is 12k, minus 1 times of 0 is 0, divided by 12, I will be getting k only, right? Next, what is this value? It is 40 multiplied by 48 minus 12 times of k divided by 40. And what is this value? Directly I will be getting k. Directly I will be getting k. So in order to find the value of k, what I am going to do is I am going to compare this s power 1. So what I will be getting is 40 times of 48 minus 12k all divided by 40. You equate it to 0. So what I will be getting is 40 into 48 minus 12k. Directly if I am writing, I will be getting k equals to 12 ones are, 12 fours are. So directly I will be getting k, which is equals to 160. Nothing but this k is k marginal. K marginal. In the case of marginal system or marginal stable system, you are going to equate this coefficient to 0. So k marginal I got 160, right? If I am talking about the range of k, for stability or for stable condition, it should be greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, what I will be getting is k greater than, so this one is greater than 0. So I will be getting k less than 160. K less than 160. So it is 0 less than k less than 160. Nothing but option 1 is going to follow. Next question, calculate the frequency of oscillation. So the same question they have given. So we need to calculate the frequency of oscillation. So in order to calculate the frequency of oscillation, make use of s square term. So this coefficient is 40. 40 s square plus k, which is equals to 0. 40 s square plus k, that is k marginal, which is equals to 0. What is the value of k marginal we got? It is 160. So I will be getting 40 times of s square, which is equals to minus 160. So 40 ones, it is 44s. So I will be getting s equals to Whenever you are having minus, it is plus or minus j you will be getting, because square, if I am sending on the right side, it will be plus or minus, and root of minus 1 will be j into root 4. So what I will be getting is plus or minus j2. You compare this one with the help of, or with plus or minus j omega n. So omega n I got 2 radians per second. Nothing but natural frequency of oscillation is 2 radians per second. Nothing but option 3 is going to follow. Next question. Waveguide behaves as high pass filter. Electrically, waveguide behaves as an high pass filter, and coaxial cable behaves as low pass filter. In the case of coaxial cable, you can't transmit high frequency signals. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 4 is correct. Next question. Calculate the propagation delay in a 4-bit ripple carry adder. Nothing but n equals to 4, given some delay which is equals to 30 nanoseconds and the carrier delay which is equals to 20 nanoseconds. We know that the propagation delay which is given by, in the case of ripple carry adder, it is maximum of ntc comma n minus 1 times of tc plus ts. It is maximum of what is 4 times of 20, it is 80 comma 3 times of 20, it is 60 plus 30, I will be getting 90. So it is 90 nanoseconds. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. If you are preparing for GATE exams, they will be giving the input values. So if it is 1011, the propagation delay may not be 90 nanoseconds. In the worst case, the propagation delay can be 90 nanoseconds. So these things you should know. So whenever they are giving the sequence, you have to draw 4-bit ripple carry adder and then you have to solve. So this question has been asked by many of my students. So they are asking how phase velocity is greater than or equals to group velocity. They are asking. We know that phase velocity, which is given by omega divided by beta, which is equals to c divided by under root of 1 minus of fc divided by f the whole square. But if I am talking about group velocity, it is Vg equals to c into under root of 1 minus of fc divided by f the whole square. Now we know that we will not be having negative frequency, but for mathematical simplification and for validating Fourier transform, what we will be thinking is, or what we will be assuming is, we will be considering negative frequency components also. Similarly, if I am making f equals to fc, because for a wave to propagate, the minimum frequency should be the cutoff frequency and wavelength should be maximum wavelength, right? Now if I am talking about the input frequency which is equals to the cutoff frequency, then what I will be getting is Vp equals to infinite, because you will be getting c divided by 0 which is equals to infinite, nothing but speed is infinite. But if I am talking about group velocity equals to 0. Group velocity equals to 0. As I slightly increase the frequency components beyond fc, then I will be getting 1 minus of some 0.95, 0.99. So it is like that. So I will be getting a reduced components. But here it will be increase. Here it will be increase, but here it decreases from infinite. Say suppose I have maintained f in such a way that it is very much greater than fc. So what I will be getting is c divided by approximately equals to 1. So at that time Vp is approximately equals to the speed of light, that is c. So if f is very much greater than fc, then I will be getting Vg equals to c. Then I will be getting Vg equals to c, nothing but a speed of light. So in this case Vp equals to Vg, right? But if I am talking about in general Vp is greater than, or always it is greater than group velocity. We know that we can't achieve more than a speed of light, but theoretically if I am speaking, the phase velocity will always be greater than the speed of light and the group velocity will always be less than the speed of light. Mathematically if I am speaking, Vp is greater than or equals to group velocity. Hence the suitable option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. Next question, a rectangular waveguide operating in dominant mode. This one you are going to call it as A and this one you are going to call it as B. Dominant mode means you will be talking about cutoff frequency and you will be having maximum wavelength. So dominant mode is the one where attenuations will be very much less. So the frequency which is given by C divided by 2A, which is equals to 3 into 10 power 10 because they have expressed in seconds. So it is 10 power 10 divided by 2 into 10. So what I will be getting is 1.5 into 10 power 9. Next, if I am talking about phase velocity, what is the formula? The formula is this one. That is Vp equals to omega divided by beta, which is equals to C divided by under root of 1 minus of Fc divided by Fd whole square, which is equals to 3 into 10 power 10 divided by square root of 1 minus of 1.5 into 10 power 9 whole divided by 2.5 into 10 power 9 whole square. So what you will be getting is 3.75 into 10 power 8. Nothing but option 1 is going to follow. An electromagnetic wave in a non-magnetic medium with E equals to E naught cos of omega t minus beta y. So omega equals to 3 into 10 power 8 and beta they have given 1. The intrinsic impedance equals to, now they have given omega equals to 3 into 10 power 8. We know that beta, which is equals to omega into under root of mu epsilon. So I can write it as omega into, how can I write mu? It is mu naught times of mu r into epsilon times of epsilon r. So if I am taking mu naught and epsilon naught as constant, or if I am taking it outside, I will be getting mu r times of epsilon r. So what is 1 divided by mu naught times of epsilon naught? It is omega divided by c. So that is 1 divided by mu naught times of epsilon naught is c into mu r times of epsilon r, which is equals to beta, which is equals to 1. So here they are talking about a non-magnetic medium. So here you will be getting mu r, you need to take it as 1 and epsilon r you need to take it as 1. So you will be getting omega equals to c, because omega they have given 3 into 10 power 8 and speed of light which is equals to 3 into 10 power 8. So these terms will get cancelled. If I want 1 means I have to take mu r equals to 1 and epsilon r equals to 1. So intrinsic impedance eta, which is equals to 120 pi or 377. Just to trap you, I have given close to 377, right? Next question, in the K map we make use of gray code because for every adjacent cell there is a difference of only one transition, nothing but only one bit is going to make a change. So power dissipation is very much less and K map is used for simplification purpose. For the open loop transfer function they have given g of s times of h of s, which is equals to k times of s plus 2 into s plus 4 divided by s square. You have to find the valid breakpoints. So it is k times of s square plus 6s plus 8 whole divided by s square, which is equals to g of s times of h of s. If you want to find the breakpoints, that is dk divided by ds, you have to equate it to 0. So that is d by ds of, write the expression, that is k times of s square plus 6s plus 8 whole divided by s square. So make gain as 1. Then apply u by v rule. So what you will be getting is s square into differentiation of this term will be 2s plus 6 minus s square plus 6s plus 8 into differentiation of s square will be 2s, which is equals to 0. So what I will be getting is 2s cube plus 6s square minus 2s cube minus 12s square minus 16s, which is equals to 0. So I will be getting minus 6s square minus 16s, which is equals to 0. If I am taking minus 2 as common, I will be getting 3s square plus 8, if I am taking minus 2s as common, I will be getting 3s plus 8, which is equals to 0. So I will be getting s equals to 0 and s equals to minus 8 divided by 3, that is minus 2.66. Now if I am drawing pole 0 plot, so two poles are at origin and s square plus 6s plus 8. If I want to calculate the root, I have to make use of minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac whole divided by 2a. Or what you can do is, it is 4 2's. So the valid roots are, so I will be getting minus 2 and minus 4. So one 0 is at minus 2 and another 0 is at minus 4. So I got 0. 0 is a valid breakpoint. So it is valid breakpoint. Now here no root locus will exist. Here root locus will exist. So it is minus 2.66. So this is also a valid one. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 3 is correct. Nothing but 0 comma minus 2.66 is a valid one. In general, we prefer underdamped system. The best system is critical damped system, but it is at the verge of oscillation. So operating in a critical damped system is a tedious one. So the best one is underdamped system. Next, this question is very important. Now look at over here, none of them have given the correct answer. Now, what is the problem with this question? Many of them have thought this is 1 1 followed by 1 0. So have made a mistake like that, they have solved, and they have thought like that and then they have solved. But thing is, you have to arrange the cells in a particular order and then you have to solve this question. My inputs are A, B, C, D, and the cell numbers are 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0, and again here it is 0 0 0 1 1 1 1 0. Now fill the cells. It is 1 1 1 1 1 and 1 1 cells should be written over here. Now start grouping. What you will be getting is, this one is a nibble. So what you will be getting is C bar D bar plus this grouping is CD. And I'll be getting one more nibble grouping. I'll be getting one more nibble grouping, that is B bar, and here it is C bar. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. I made a simple mistake over here. I'm sorry. Arrange the band gaps of the material in a particular order. We know that for germanium, the band gap is 0.67 electron volt. You can round off to 0.7 electron volt. And for silicon carbide, the band gap is of the order of 2.36 electron volt. And for carbon, it is 5 electron volt. And for aluminum nitride, so it is 6 electron volt. So if I am arranging in an ascending order or descending order, so if I am arranging in ascending order, so the corresponding statement that is going to follow is option C is correct. Which of these exhibits highest input resistance? So we will be having common base configuration, common emitter configuration, and common collector configuration. Now if I am talking about input resistance, in the case of common base configuration, it is the least or the low value. In the case of common emitter configuration, it is a medium value. In the case of common collector configuration, it is an high value. This is with respect to input impedance. If I am talking with respect to output impedance, then in the case of common base configuration, your input impedance will be a very high value. And in the case of common emitter configuration, it is a medium value. And in the case of common collector configuration, it will be a low value. But for voltage amplifier design and all, we are in need of high input impedance and low output impedance. So at that time, common base configuration can't be used. Hence, we are going to prefer common collector configuration. In the case of common emitter configuration, input impedance is also moderate and output impedance is also a moderate value. So most of the cases, we are not going to make use of common emitter configuration, but gain is more. So at that time, what you are going to do is common emitter followed by common collector configuration, voltage buffer. If you are making use of common base plus common collector, it is a current buffer. So even though common collector is having a gain of approximately equals to 1, we are going to make use of common collector configurations with common emitter or common base configurations just because of input impedance matching as well as output impedance matching. Nothing but for impedance matching purpose, we are going to make use of common collector configuration even though voltage gain is approximately equals to 1. They have given A3FB. So you should be in a position to tell that it is in hexadecimal number system because they have given F and B. So if I am writing in binary, it is 1000, 0011, 1111, 1011 because B means it is 11. So it is in base 2 number system, nothing but binary. If I am writing in octal, start grouping 3 bits, start grouping 3 bits. So what I will be getting is 1 0 1 7 7 3. So this is in octal number system, right? So what they are asking is you have to express in decimal number system. So the value what they have given is A3FB. So B into 16 power 0 because 16 power 0 weight, 1 weight, 2, 3. So it is plus F means it is 15 into 16 power 1 plus 3 into 16 square plus 8 into 16 cube. What is 16 cube? It is 4096 into 8 plus 3 into what is 16 square? It is 256 plus 15 into 16 plus what is B? B means 11. 11 into 16. So if I am summing, I will be getting 33,787 in decimal number system. So the suitable option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. 22nd question, what they are given is in which A to D converter the conversion time is independent of input value. It is successive approximation register type. Say suppose let us consider 4-bit A to D converter. If your data input is 0001 or it is 1111 or if it is 1000, the conversion time is fixed. If I am considering 8-bit, then whatever may be the input value, the conversion time is fixed in the case of successive approximation register type. So the suitable option that is going to follow is option 3 is correct. Identify the number of prime implicants for SOP cell valued 1367. Again, this question has been asked by many students in the Telegram group. So let me do a SOP mapping. So let me consider my inputs are A, B and C. My inputs are A, B and C. The cell value is 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0. So it is 0, 1, 2, 3. SOP means for 1 C we have to group. 6, 7 means 4, 5, 6, 7. Now if I am talking about prime implicant, you have to group each and every possible grouping. Now if I am talking about a minimal expression, so I can make this one as a group. So this group value will be A bar. On the column side it is C. Plus one more grouping I can make, that is A, and on the column side it is B. So this is minimal expression. But if I am talking about prime implicant, I will be getting A bar C plus AB, not a problem, plus you will be getting one more grouping. So you can do this grouping also. And in the case of prime implicant grouping, all sorts of maximum grouping you have to do. So it is plus BC. So how many grouping you have done? So you have done 3 grouping. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. 24th question, if the conductivity is sigma equals to 5 and operating frequency f equals to 50 gigahertz, then the medium is they are asking. 50 giga means giga, it is 10 power 9. Now in order to find the medium, we have to go for loss tangent. So we have to go for loss tangent, which is given by LT, which is equals to tan phi, which is equals to conduction current density divided by, which is equals to sigma divided by omega epsilon. If sigma divided by omega epsilon, if it is very much greater than 1, nothing but approximately equals to 10, then it is a conductor. If it is very much less than 1, nothing but less than 0.1, then it is an insulator. If it is in between, then it is a semiconductor. Now what is the value of sigma? It is 5 divided by omega. It is 2 pi f. 2 pi into 50 into 10 power 9 into, how can I write epsilon as epsilon naught times of epsilon r? Epsilon naught is 8.854 into 10 power minus 12 into epsilon r value is 1. So upon solving, I'll be getting 1.7975. So which is a semiconductor. So the suitable option that is going to follow is option 2 is correct. Last question. In the case of super heterodyne receiver, intermediate frequency is, we know that it is 455 kilohertz. So the corresponding option that is going to follow is option 3 is correct. First of all, thank you for taking mock test. The topper has scored 32 marks out of 50. In NET exams, you will not be finding this kind of tough questions, but my idea is to give tough questions so that it will motivate you in order to take more and more mock tests, and you will be preparing for the worst scenario. So from Craving Gyan team, I want to congratulate Abzir Khan for scoring maximum marks in this mock test. If you followed the solutions what I have provided, please give it a big thumbs up. Also share this video with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel Craving Gyan. Also for the next mock test update, please join our Telegram group. Thank you. All the best for exams.